Now, today we can go into Turkey territory over here. We're going to speak about a very famous rabbi of his time, Rabbi Bechor Yaakov Yavetz. Zecher Tzadik Libracha, another one of the great rabbis of Turkey. We've already on this series spoken probably about a good, at least 100 rabbis actually came from that specific area in of itself here already. So very, very interesting. We're not sure exactly the date when he was born, but seemingly he passed away around the year 1875. Naturally, it would be on Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan, the date we are in that specific territory over here this week. In the 1875 he passed away, so we're talking about 150 years ago he passed away, the great rabbi did. I think his father's name was Chacham Chaim Moshe Ya'avץ. His mother's name was Marat Zinbol, if I'm not mistaken. So very, very interesting. He was born in Izmir and in Turkey. We're not too sure the exact date. Remember, Turkey, especially at that point in time, was, let's say, a bastion area of Torah learning. We're going to see that he would be the author of different great books, especially one of the name, the Tzur Yaakov, a very famous book of its time. Let's explore a few of the highlights of the rabbi's life. So as we said before, he was born. His father was a great rabbi, and he would learn in the famous yeshiva called Yeshivat Bet Yaakov, or yeshiva we've spoken about on various occasions before here on the series. Who was the Rosh Yeshiva of this yeshiva? It was a famous Rabbi Chaim Pelagi, and we've spoken about Rabbi Pelagi on numerous occasions here in the series. Probably one of the most famous Turkish rabbis. He was, without doubt, during the 1800s, respectively. We didn't just record a few videos about him, we recorded videos about his family also, and about different books that he wrote. So Rabbi Ya'avץ would become, let's say, one of the most diligent learners of Torah at that stage in time, and he would be learning from day and night, as it says over here. He would be learning inside the study hall, the Torah study hall, pretty much throughout the time, through day and night. Wouldn't sleep much at all, and was just really imbued inside the Torah in of itself. Shinat keva b'shinat arai. He would have, with regards to it, just be learning from himself. ובכל כוחי עבדתי ולא מנעתי עצמי מבית מדרש מיום הראשון עד היום השביעי אפילו דלא היה לו פנאי. Let's just say over here. So he was just really, really, very, very much imbued in the Torah the whole time, and was just utilizing every single moment to actually study Torah. Very interesting. Now, we've spoken about many of the great Turkish rabbis and how they really advanced their brilliance and their concentrations just imbuing in Torah study in itself. He said so here, just using the Hayomi website as a resource over here for the video. Liyamim nitmane liyot rab melamed talmidim beit midrash. He would have many different students inside the study hall, inside the beit midrash. Shabohu atzmo lamad b'chinuch. He would teach them, educate them in himself while he was also learning. That's actually interesting. The famous rabbi who we're going to speak about in a minute, Rabbi Avram Pelagi, who happened to be the son of Rabbi Chaim Pelagi, will actually write, I think, Katav Alav Behespedo in the time period of the eulogy. Chacham Bechor Yaakov Yavetz, Shea Me'iranu Izmir, Shea Lomed B'Kedusha B'Tahara. He would testify, Rabbi Avram Pelagi, he was probably the leading rabbi of his generation, about Rabbi Ya'avץ, that how he was inside the city, he was learning, bringing Kedusha, holiness to the city, in its purity to the city. And the Be'ir HaKodesh, seemingly he would also spend time very much learning in Jerusalem. Remember, Jerusalem is one of the 4 holy cities of Israel, along with Tzfat, Tiberias and Hebron, respectively. And so we're saying here, and et talmido vaya ohev kabanim vaya sameach simcha gedola shezichuko Hashem la'amid talmidim harbe. So he had many, many different great Talmudim, great students at that stage in time, really bring people close to Hashem. Rabbi Ya'avץ would, respectively. Now, I believe Liyamim Alal Yerushalayim Uba Niftar V'Nitzman B'Yom Aleph Cheshvan in the year 1875. So he passed away seemingly on the 1st of Cheshvan in 1875, 150 years ago. Now, he would, I think, eventually he would make Aliyah during his time to Jerusalem, and I think passed away. I'm not too sure how far afterwards, after he actually arrived in Jerusalem, he would have passed away also. So that's something we're going to. He will be the author of great Torah books also. Especially, I think there was book. I think it was a main book, if I'm not mistaken. It was called the Tzur Yaakov, as I mentioned on the outset. This was various different drashot, sermons, chidushim, teachings on the Parshat Al Seder, Parshat Torah, Yetzeh, and on the 5 books of Moses, 5 books of the Torah. So he wrote various different teachings on it and importances. And I think it actually came out in the year 1866. And so we're talking about 9 years before the great rabbi had passed away. The book would actually be printed over there. And I think it would get printed through the Ben Sion Benjamin Ruditi, I think in Izmir of its time. Remember, we'll talk about it. I think Turkey itself had a printing press of its day. A Sefer Nosaf Shekatab B'Nizkar B'Dvarav Hu Eidat Yaakov. So there was a congregation of Jacob Sefer. This actually would encompass various different Torah laws, Jewish laws, halachot, and also agadot, obviously pertaining to the Gemaras, respectively. I'm not sure if it's come out yet or it did come out, but I think in his lifetime it definitely didn't. Maybe it's in manuscript form, or maybe it did come out at one stage in time. If anyone knows more information on that, please let me know about that. I really, really appreciate it. Let's explore a bit more within regards to him. He was also a darshan. He was a melamed. He was an educator. He was known as a premium educator in Izmir. I think he would also teach in Jerusalem. So very, very interesting. There's another opinion that says he passed away in the year 1874. So we're not too sure what exactly specific year it's up. His rabbi was famous Rabbi Chaim Pelagi, who we mentioned about before. Remember, Rabbi Chaim was one of the great rabbis of Turkey of his time. He would have a talmid of the name Rabbi Yirmiyah Ma'argonoto, who was another famous rabbi in Turkey in his time also. Let's explore a bit more within regards to Rabbi Bechor Yaakov Yavetz. Also, it's actually interesting. I didn't mention on the outset, but he was a descendant of the famous Rabbi Brazili Yavets, who was also another famous rabbi of his time. Rabbi we were talking about before. So this Beit Yaakov Yeshiva was actually based in Izmir, and that was headed by Rabbi Pelagi. I'm not too sure exactly how many years. We're going to find out in a few minutes, but Rabbi Chaim Pelagi was the Rosh Yeshiva over there for a significant period of time. He was known, Rabbi Yavets, as, let's say, one of the outstanding students of Rabbi Chaim Pelagi over there, and was mentioned by many of the people, respectively, as one of the great Talmudim. Or Makaneoto, he had a nickname, I believe. It was called the Ben Na'eh Hu Li. That's what's actually said over there. I think he would learn also with Rabbi Avram Pelagi, who mentioned about Rabbi Avram Pelagi, as I said, did eulogize him. Va'id al atzmo ki lo yatzem beit midrash miyom rishon va'ad Shabbat. So he was literally from the Beit Midrash from Sunday till Shabbat, just learning the whole time, imbued in Torah importances and Jewish learning. I think he had support from his family in regards to his learnings. Now there was another great rabbi at that time in Turkey, a rabbi named Rabbi Chaim Benjamin Pontremoli, Hamevi Divrei Torah Bishmo, who would bring out words of Torah actually in his name. Now the famous Chachabif we mentioned before, that's Rabbi Chaim Pelagi. That was an abbreviation of his name. Min Chachabif Menhu Lerav Melamed B'Yeshiva. Sham Ha'amid Talmidim Arbel. Many students he would have. Ve'ido alav ki ahavat kavato et banav. So he would just testify that the love he had for his students was second to none, really imbuing them in Torah and making sure that they were very great. Giso haya Baruch Yavets. The brother-in-law was Baruch Yavets Beno. Chaim Moshe Niftar Kitzirato Od B'Chaye Aviv. I think reported over here. Haspido. Harab Yaakov Me'id ki lo haya lo arbe svarim lefanav be'et ktivato chivrato. So now I think he went to make Aliyah in Eretz Yisrael as before, and would go to Jerusalem over there. He would actually end up being buried, I think, in Har Zaytim, the Mount Olives burial plate, obviously on the 1st of Cheshvan, I think 1974 and 1975. Please correct me if I'm mistaken. And now in his Kebeh, it's actually written, Beno Bacha La'i Shofra, the Balat Ba'ara, Heichet Harav Hamo. Marbitz Torah B'Talmidim Ba'al Sefer Tzur Yaakov from Rabbi Bechor Yaakov Zechet Tzadik Libracha. Just what it's actually written of that point in time. So very, very interesting. So we've spoken about his books. It was we mentioned about we're going to explore through the highlights of the book in a minute. But the Tzur Yaakov itself obviously encompassed different teachings from 5 books of Moses, from the Parshot of the Torah, and V'chein darosh Ebel Moshe Lasped al Beno HaYachid Shnifta. I think sadly, his son had passed away at one stage in time, so we'll give Hesper the eulogy with regards to that. And very, very will encompass very similar teachings and Agadodot from the Torah itself. Very, very much interesting. So once again, I'm not sure it was actually printed or not at one stage in time, but very interesting. So we're going to speak more about the Pelagi family, who are very, very close with him as a class goes on over here. But let's explore a few of the highlights of his book before. Over here, just maybe a couple of the teachings he gives over now. There's a teaching in the Tzur Yaakov, I think, that's concentrating on the parts of Parshat Re'eh. Obviously, Parshat Re'eh is one of the Parshiot in the book of Devarim. I think in Daf Kuf Pei Zayin, that's 187. Remember, this book was printed in the year 1866. He has a teaching over here, which says, "Mebe'er shekol shu ra'ev hu oni ba'oto sha'ah ve'ein tzarich Tanaim." This is one of the teachings he gives over here. Another teaching he will bring down says, "Mebe'er keshe lomed beda'aga shochach ma shlomed b'tzarik shilmed b'simcha." So the importance when you're learning Torah that you're doing it with joy. If you're doing it with worry, you can end up more easily forgetting the Torah learning you're doing. Right? If you're doing it in a joyous state, you're more likely to remember the Torah learning that you're going to be doing over here. And now another teaching he would give over was, I think, based on Parshat Shalach Lecha. I think page 106 over there. Once again from the Tzur Yaakov book, which was printed in 1866. He teaches, "Melamed Shalach Lecha Batzmecha Anashim Agolim Shubiyadecha Hadavar." This is another teaching of his that he gives over there. So very, very interesting. Let's speak a bit about his rabbi. And also, first of all, let's speak a bit more about the book that Tzur Yaakov was printed in Izmir, I believe. And it's actually written over there, I think, inside the book itself. It mentions 2 people, Tzion Benjamin Roriti, I believe, maybe I'm pronouncing it correctly, and also Rabbi Moshe Yoshua, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure if they were the printers of the book itself or the publishing house. Also mentioned the name Abdul Aziz, if I'm not mistaken. And mentions his name and its whole preface within regards to the book under it. It was printed seemingly in Izmir, as we said before, in the year 1866. Now this book itself, I think, would contain as many as 459 pages. You can actually see the preface of the book on the Hebrew Books.org website out there, respectively. So it was basically a drashot, very different sermons that was based on the Parshat Shor, on the 5 books of Moses, as we mentioned about before. Let's explore a bit within regards to 2 rabbis he was close to, especially Rabbi Chaim Pelagi. The Hachabif happened to have been his rabbi. So let's explore a bit within regards to him. He was born in the year 1788 and passed away in 1868. Naturally, on the 10th of February of that year. He was a great Jewish Turkish chief rabbi of Smyrna, Izmir, and the author in Ladino and Hebrew, various different books in himself. Remember, Rabbi Chaim Pelagi's star student was Rabbi Ya'bez, respectively, over there. So we can really see the greatness that was, let's just say, infiltrated among the great generations itself, respectively. And the Izmir in its day was a bastion of Torah learning place all across the world. Yeah, obviously Rabbi Chaim Pelagi had the title of Chacham Bashi. He was a chief rabbi and a Gaon, a genius he was known as. He was a father of grand rabbis, obviously Rabbi Avram Pelagi, Rabbi Isaac Pelagi, Rabbi Rachamim Nissim Pelagi, and Rabbi Yosef Pelagi. And we actually recorded a video, if you recollect, on the history of the Pelagi family. I think they would branch out to various different countries, and there's really rich heritage as they branch out, I think, in the Netherlands, Turkey, various other places also, maybe in North Africa. Africa they would also do. There's other ways of spelling the Pelagi family. Pelashi, there's other ways of Pelagi, it could be. But Rabbi Chaim Pelagi, I think his Hilula was on the 17th of Shvat. We recorded a video on him. And he was the son of, his mother was, name was Kaden, if I'm not mistaken. Let's explore a bit more within regards to Rabbi Chaim Pelagi. As I said before, he was born in 1788, passed away. He was 80 years of age when he passed away. And he was really, I think, he was a working rabbinate between the years 1813 to 1868. There's very much part of the time when Rabbi Yavitz was about. Rabbi Yavitz, we're not too sure when he was born, but he passed away, I think, in 1875. So he passed away 7 years after Rav Pelagi did in of itself. So it's interesting. He was actually born in Izmir, and it was part of the Ottoman Empire at that point in time. And I think his father was Rabbi Yaakov Pelagi, who was a rabbi himself and a famous Kabbalist. And his maternal grandfather was Rabbi Yosef Raphael ben Chaim Chazan, who lived between the years 1741 to 1820. He's a key rabbi because he was a chief rabbi of Izmir, if I'm not mistaken. It could be he was Rishon LeZion also in Jerusalem, but I'm not too sure. He would also study under his grandfather, who was also a famous person. I think also Rabbi Isaac ben Eliakim Getigno, if I'm not mistaken. Rabbi Chaim Pelagi's brilliance was apparent in the year 1813 when he was only 25 years. Ya'betz was learning, who we happen to be speaking about in today's special edition of the video, which is very, very interesting enough. I think it's interesting. In the years 1837, 1838, he became the head of the religious court and became a dayan at a very, very young age. He was a marbitz Torah, as they say, a teacher Torah, and a Rav Korei, head rabbi in itself. He would become the Chacham Bashi, the chief rabbi, in the, I think, either in 1854, 1856, differing opinions over there. And he was appointed actually by the Sultan at that point in time, Abdul Mesid I. I think during the Tanzimat period, respectively, that's where Rav Ya'betz would have been very much at that point in time, and he would serve as a chief rabbi until he passed away in 1868. And he also received an award, Rabbi Chaim Pelagi did, called the Mesidia Order, a third class also, interesting enough. Rabbi Chaim Pelagi, I think, printed many books. There was a large fire that spread in Turkey during that time period, so many, many people lost their Torah works at that point in time, especially if it was in manuscript form. So I think his most notable, Rav Chaim Pelagi's most notable work was a book called the Tokachot Chaim, the Reproofs of Life, in of itself. So very, very interesting. And he was buried, I think, Bakri Baba Jewish Cemetery in Izmir, if I'm not mistaken. So that was a rabbi of Rabbi Bechor Yaakov Yavetz who we're speaking about at that point in time. Let's speak about another rabbi that Rabbi Bechor Yaakov Yavetz was close to, was the son of Rabbi Chaim Pelagi, or then Rabbi Avram Pelagi. So I'm not sure if they were chavrutot together, but I'd assume they were probably learning together also at the point in time. Remember, Rabbi Avram Pelagi will eulogize Rabbi Ya'betz also. So Rabbi Avram Pelagi lived between around 1809 to 1810. He was born. He passed away in 1898. So he himself passed away 23 years after Rabbi Ya'betz did over there. He was also the grand rabbi and an author of Ottoman Smyrna, of Ottoman Izmir. And obviously was a brother of Rabbi Racham Nissim Pelagi and Rabbi Yosef Pelagi also. So it just shows the influence he came from the famous Pelagi family in of itself. And he studied in Beit Yaakov Seminary, so he was close to Rabbi Ya'betz, probably through the Beit Yaakov Seminary also. That was a rabbinical college that produced brilliant rabbis in Turkey, one of the famous yeshivot, without a doubt, in the last few hundred years. He would write essays also at a very early age. Rabbi Avram Pelagi did. And after his father passed away in 1868, he was appointed the Grand Rabbi of Izmir, and he would hold this position for a staggering 30 years. And so part of the time when Rabbi Ya'betz was alive, Rabbi Avram Pelagi was the chief rabbi. Remember, I'm not sure exactly when Rabbi Ya'betz would end up going to Jerusalem over there, which is very, very interesting enough. So so he was a great rabbi over there. He became, interesting enough, I think the official year when he will officially take over his father's role was on October 7th, 1869. Over there, and will promote various different forms of new forms of education, you could say also. Now it's actually interesting. His wife's name was Rabbanit Sarah, and I think sadly she passed away at one stage, and then he would, I think, remarry later on, if I'm not mistaken. So I think through marriage he was related to Rabbi Moshe Cohen, another great rabbi from Gerba, if I'm not mistaken. He had, I think, two sons, Shlomo and Nissim, and two daughters also. And he himself, Rabbi Avram Pelagi, passed away, I believe, in 1899, right at the end of the 19th century, on January the 2nd, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not so sure the exact Hebrew date, but he also received awards. I think an order of the Saint Saviour of Greece, Rabbi Avram Pelagi would receive, and also the order of Osma Yeni, if I'm not mistaken. So that's very prestigious. Also, that's very, very interesting. So He was also a famous rabbi in Izmir. He was buried in Izmir. Rabbi Avram Pelagi was also, he lived about close to 90 years. He did. But anyway, today we were here on this edition. We're speaking about the famous Rabbi Bechor Yaakov Yavetz, famous rabbi of his time, rabbi we've spoken about on various occasions before. We've spoken about other rabbis from the Ya'bez family over here. He was buried in Har HaZeitim, just to recap, the Mount of Olives, their burial plot. He was an educator. He was a Talmid of Rabbi Chaim Pelagi. He was, at the generation time here, Rabbi Avram Pelagi. He was the rabbi of Rabbi Yirmiyah Mar Gonto, very famous rabbi. And he had a famous son, Chaim Moshe, Rabbi Chaim Moshe, also, which you have to point out. And don't forget to light candles in his memory here on the 1st of Cheshvan. Marks the date of his passing, his Hilula. So, of the great rabbi, and he was author once again of the Sefer Tzur Yaakov and great other works also. So please learn more about him, about the great rabbis. I think more information is chronicled over him on various other places also. You can look at the Haimi website, for example, Wikipedia. There's information, if I'm not mistaken, and I think the Har HaZeitim website, which is also featured. And there's various encyclopedias of the great rabbis of Turkey. I think he's included in page 169 of one of the encyclopedias over there, and which actually featured. I think there's other places also he's featured in. Also other encyclopedic works, I think, within regards to articles, or famous Beit Yaakov Yeshiva, I think the teachings are within regards to him. In Beit Yaakov Seminary, hopefully, I think that we did record a video on the Beit Yaakov Yeshiva, if I'm not mistaken, at one stage in time. And it's actually interesting, I think in the Tzur Yaakov book, which we talked about, Tzur Yaakov actually means a rock of Jacob in English. He would actually get an approval in the book, a recommendation from another great rabbi, someone, Rabbi Chaim Pelagi will actually give him a haskama inside that book, respectively. Okay. So thanks everyone for watching, and watch over the previous videos we're recording. And please don't forget to subscribe to the channel over here and join our community. Thank you and have a great day. I appreciate everyone watching, and we're actually at the moment recording this at the time of Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan, the new Hebrew month of Cheshvan. So I'm wishing you all a Chodesh Tov Merach, a great new month, and to be blessed over here. And we actually recorded a video on the new Hebrew month of Rosh Chodesh just yesterday over here, last night. So if you check out the channel and you want to watch that video, just go on to the latest video section, and you're more than free to watch that channel in of itself. So please, everyone, subscribe to the channel. Take care and have a great day. Thank you for watching.